just from having a diversified environment background and yeah, organizational life roundabout.
Question was about internship? Yes. Yeah. Okay. Yeah, so for me the praxis semester was probably the first chance to prove myself into like Norwegian working life. Because yeah, I don't know, was the workplace I worked in. Yeah, just go.
Just a second.
Yeah, that's fine.
Vi har ikke længere nå.
We have time.
I think the battery.
You did it.
No, I just want alternate. Yeah. Just keep going.
Does that go?
Yeah.
Yeah. So the praxis was somehow the chance to test myself if I could survive and work in somehow a Norwegian working environment as a German. So with work effort was quite okay. With language barrier in the beginning was still tough, but I was somehow lucky that they were patient. Yeah, I learned a lot, just Norwegian and as well about solar, which helped me so much further with the master thesis later on. So that's why I recommend whatever kind of chance you get some kind of somehow relative experience that you find could be interesting for the future. Just take it. As well did I took besides that courses which were completely outside of our master degree. So I took, for example, a course in Excel decision analysis, which I need right now at work all the time because I was gifted to get on my second week Excel file which I should work through. And just normal easy functions with some function in Excel are not longer just helpful then. So there's a lot you can explore besides just taking the courses, which is really interesting going on at the university. And usually you write an email to Olaf or better Liebe because she has often more time. Then you can just, if you are qualified, you can just go into the courses and learn them, which is like really highly recommended. And especially for getting a job later, like these kind of soft skills they call it, they are really important. So when I applied, they really asked me like what have you done besides just studying, even though studying is full-time and you do a lot there. So they really look into something special in yourself and not just like the grades. So I got in my last interview, it was me, Personalhüsse, we are working together with training to the rest, which were in the interview, and 5 people from the company. So we were 9 people, and they were all looking more or less at me, which was kind of scary in the beginning. But they really look into how motivated are you and what do you bring on the table, which is besides just grades. For example, I asked my chef, why did they hire me? Because I don't have any experience in waste. And they could just hire an engineer who are like environment engineer or something like that. But the chef told me that the chief operator of the whole company, he's looking for people outside, just being chemistry related people or biology or engineer. So that was somehow the chance which all of us are looking for somehow, not being an engineer and getting into something like that. And that's coming with collecting experiences from all different kind of places which are relevant for us, I think. And especially the internship is like a good starter for doing something else than sitting in the lecture and hearing a lot, and then writing something in the exam, and then you hope you get a good grade. But doing something like, even maybe it's practical, like really practical with solar or in Folken and so different kind of stuff. So just broadening and showing them later when you apply that you are able to what we always get told from the first minute. Yeah, you can do all kinds of jobs because you understand the bigger picture. So you have to show them that you actually understand the big picture and you can collect information from technology sides and different kind of perspectives. So I think you really have to sell it and make probably, when you're interested in one topic, make it that as a selling argument that when you're interested in solar, I can learn in a half year how solar mostly in big parts can work and I can contribute. And that's what companies often look for, making fast events.
Thank you. Okay. So if Julie and Victor and Gun can just come up here and remember to keep your distance. I think I will just ask you one question, and that is, what are the things you wished you had known when you were starting the course? And you can each take a turn, or if you feel inspired, that is, you're not obliged to do so, but if you feel inspired, then please come up and share with us.
Well, for me, when I started the course, I felt like sustainability was more for vegans or for politicians. So I felt like I didn't fit in at first because I had a background in economics and I couldn't really see myself where I could get a job. And when we asked, they said, yeah, you can get a job either in private or public sector. And then I didn't really see how that could fit my profile. But I decided to kind of stay true to the economic side and write a thesis exploring more corporate business. And in my job now, I see that the competence or the skills that I've learned from the master's program is really sought after. It's rare. And yeah, it really suits the role, and you can compete with people who are, they have 5 years of economics, but they know nothing about sustainability. So that's where my edge came. And I didn't see that when I started. So I hope you'll find your own edge where you can compete.
Yeah, I think the first thing I learned that I was like dreading the politics subjects, but now it's actually politics that I'm more interested in democracy. So that's a learning lesson. And also I thought about like studying. I didn't think about the networking, and networking became a big part of my studies. I didn't like to come up to people and explain what I study and stuff like that. But I challenged myself, and I participated in Nordic Edge, ONS, and all of these conferences. And I always looked on Facebook and LinkedIn what's happening, and I just, if it was somewhat relevant, I just participated. And one of the, many of the people I come in contact with during this networking is actually people I collaborate with my company today, like Integrated Renewables, Nordic Edge, and SmartBean. So you will get use of these contacts later. So participate, talk, and get out of your comfort zone. That would be my best advice. Yeah.
I'm a quite radical person, so actually I will talk closely and honestly that after I finish my master degree, it's a bit sad, but I wish I have chosen another bachelor degree. Yeah, the thing is, one thing about Gun is that she could attend to a lot of conferences in Stavanger. The thing is, I don't know Norwegian, so there are some of them there in English. Of course, everybody is willing to talk in English and express in the conference, but mainly when everything is on Facebook, there is Norwegian. So there is a little bit of the barrier of the language for me to attend and to see the things, what is things going on. The second thing is about sustainability within the social science to me is a little bit hard to apply to our social life, to our practice. How should I say? Like when I go more and more in the waste management and more about sustainability, I found out that there are a lot of other things that maybe now you still have time. You, like Proven said, you still have a lot of chances and opportunities to take other extra classes because it may help you in the future. That the extra classes, they may not much relevant, but they will help you in somehow. Yeah, because like now I'm kind of like because I can't change my background for now, so I choose to go to develop a new theory. I don't know how to, but I just got my project proposal, so that's the thing. Okay, I want to fix this economic theory. I want to fix this. I don't know how to do, but I just want to try. That's the only motivation that drives me into the PhD in economics. Yeah. So I don't want to abolish anything.
Thank you very much. Yeah, you by all means sit down. We'll get you back up in a few minutes more time. So I think there's certainly a couple of common threads in this, and I think there's been a very interesting point made. I think sustainability. I think a lot of companies understand there's something very interesting there, but they need to be a bit more aware of what's going on in terms of sustainable development and climate change. But often they're not quite sure what they're looking for. So one of the common things in what our alumni have said is about kind of framing within the interview or to your prospective employer what it is you can offer, what it is you can act, and being able to discuss kind of the value that you bring. I think a lot of jobs in the various fields that many of us are looking at aren't so well defined, and so you have this kind of orientation towards kind of more economic backgrounds and modelling and things like that. So I think one of the things that I think a lot of people that are interested in this field have to do is learn to really sell yourself and the skills and the education you have, perhaps in a way that other people don't necessarily need to do so, and it's more kind of implicit. I think what we'll do now is we'll open the floor to questions from you, the audience. Maybe the way I think we agreed to go about doing that is if you have a question, please put your hand up, we'll select you. If you come up here, speak into the microphone, just tell us your name, whether or not you're alumni or in a certain year of the course. If you have a job right now, you can briefly say what it is you do. And if the question is general, we can address it to the separate disciplines, or if it's more specific, just say the name of the individual you wish to address. Whilst our audience is thinking about questions to answer, if the alumni could think a little bit about what I said about kind of how you frame your education to prospective employers. I think Rover made a very interesting point when he asked his boss, why have you kind of hired me rather than an environment engineer? And being able to kind of, if the role is reversed and you're asked, why should I hire you over an environment engineer? How do you frame that? How do you say, well, I know that this individual has some skills, but this is what I can offer. So if some alumni could think about that, maybe we'll get you to reflect on that. But does anyone in the audience have a question they wish to ask our participants or a specific individual? Maybe those who are interested in doing a PhD might want to orientate a question towards Raphael. Those interested in a bit more about European politics or the Brussels office and what goes on there, maybe you could ask Tora. And the similar for anyone interested in waste management or working for political settlement, or maybe if you're interested in doing something a bit more from a startup perspective, you can ask. Good. So do we have any questions from the audience? It's a lot of very kind of, a lot of faces that do not look like people want to talk. Perhaps to rephrase slightly, does anyone come up and say what they found particularly interesting? Maybe there was something you thought was I hadn't thought about it in that particular way, or something you would like kind of elaborated on in a bit more detail? Okay.
I take first year for the first person going.
Or we could welcome Sid and Olaf up on give some feedback to
Yeah.
Well, first, thank you for organizing this, and my apologies to Victor for choosing the wrong math program.
No. It's not the wrong master, it's the wrong bachelor. Yeah, because like we actually like we have a lot of people who come from different bachelor degree.
Yeah.
Yeah, so like no, so I don't hate you, so don't worry.
No, I think we could ask things about what should be in the master program, like the Green Deal, like waste management, like life cycle analysis, and so on. And we can include everything in the 2-year master program. So I think the big picture is really important, and the kind of selling point for you. And you have to acknowledge that probably the most things you will learn after the master thesis and master program, when you actually get a job. There's no job you will get where you can use the master program as the only foundation for your job. It's when you get a job, you will actually start learning the real job. That's my perspective. So in a way, the master program gives you a big picture. It gives you the opportunity to dig down into some specific fields in your master thesis. It gives you, I would say, very good colleagues, students that you study with different interests that you can learn from. And I would say the most important thing would be to follow your interests. Find the things that you care about and you find interesting. This field that we cover is so broad that it's hardly possible to cover all aspects of it. And that's why I think much of what was said here, that you kind of have to combine a background, what you have from your bachelor, from other experiences, and so on, and put it together in something with the master program, and then try to develop that further and make it a selling point. So I think you have to think about creating yourself in a way. You can do that and you get something from the master program, but a lot of it you have to do on your own. And I've always said that taking a social science education, it's a gamble. You never know what you will actually work with when you finish. And that's frustrating. I've had 2 daughters who've done the same, taken a master program, and they're skittier. They're like, what can I ever do with the master program? And they get scared. It's very kind of, they apply for jobs, and then it's very scary being in the master program and just having finished the master program. But you will, I can't promise everyone, but you will succeed. You will end up somewhere doing something. It might be something you don't know anything about. Most likely you will work with something you don't know anything about today. Just like waste management and other things. And I like what you said, Ruben. You are part of the transition in that company. That's where I kind of, when I think about you in that company, that you're going to change that fucking company into something better. And I have only had outdoor free beer. So,
tough act to follow. Hey guys. I should say first that I think it's been so enjoyable for me. I mean, Olaf and Benjamin, Tina, you've been part of it, but for me, just like fantastic organization by the way, Selene, but also just listening to all of you who've spoken. I think there's an amazing variety of things people are doing, and there's not an old established master's program. It's a couple of batches out, I was part of a guinea pig master program that was 5 years, right? So when you signed up for a bachelor's, you're like, they have no clue. And we're going to be in it for 5 years, and there's no option to quit in the middle, which is scary in a way. But in retrospect, the first batch of us, we are 30. We got 30, 40 professors all to ourselves. They knew us by name. By the time we were through it, they hadn't had as much time with any of the other batches, because then by the time we finished, there were a couple hundred people, right? They were dealing with the cross batches. Now, which brings me to the question that I have for all of our speakers today, and for anybody else who wants to kind of step up, right, and contribute. For us, thinking about what we can do to make the master's program keep growing in a way that makes it more and more useful, there are things that you can learn that help you get a job, and that's important, and we can see that people are good at that and that it's working, and that there are still challenges, and I'm sure there will be more. What are some of the things that you learned that weren't necessarily what helped you get a job, but that you couldn't have learned except if you did a master's degree? I mean, it's a big commitment. You spend a couple of years. Many of you who are on the program now and who completed it, you had a job on the side, or you took time out from something, or you decided to take a gamble to do a job, to do a degree that isn't sort of, then I go in and this is what comes out, and then I slot nicely into this little, I get this cog in the wheel effect going. So what are the things that you learned because of that you opened up space for? And I'm sure this is useful for everybody who's on the program now, because you don't know, right? You're still in your first year or your second year, and the fact is that you don't know. Sometimes you don't know until after. And I remember addressing because you're the first batch, we addressed in the auditorium of the university, a massive crowd, and a couple of us went up there, kind of like the ceremony we had here a month ago, saying, what was it that we learned? And so I'm really curious about the things that weren't necessarily job relevant, maybe more life relevant, but things that you've come to realize in retrospect. There are frustrations when you're going through the program. This course doesn't make sense, or I wish I could do this other thing, or why can't we combine these three things, or how is this what the MEES program is about? Shouldn't it be about this or that? And what we can ask the ones who are doing the courses, who are doing the kind of whole program now, is give us feedback on what we could do better, right? But what we can't ask them is, what are the things that make sense to you now in retrospect? Because there are things, all the way back to high school, my principal said, you're really angry with me right now, and you think these things are real issues. The funny thing is, I've never had any alumni come back to me after school from university and say, why didn't you do it a different way? Because in retrospect, some of those things make sense. And I'm curious about whether that's also true for some of you who've now been through the program, even if it's only been a few months in some cases. But I've really been enjoying this evening so far, so other than that question, I just want to say this is really fun.
If that would work.
Yeah, I can see Raphael has some thoughts on
And
Can you hear me, Raphael?
Now?
Yeah, perfect.
Okay. So, to think about all the things that Sid just said, two things. One, the first thing that is probably the way to describe the program, the fact that it's multidisciplinary. What on earth does that mean? Well, I mean, at least my batch, I don't know how the new batch is, but my batch was probably the most diverse group of people I've ever had to work with. I mean, we literally had nurses, engineers, economists, political scientists, and well, at the end of the day, that's probably one of the things that people appreciated the most about the way that the background that I had. The fact that I knew how to work with different people, understand, how be able to communicate with them in a way that we understood each other and we're actually able to work together. And what did that mean in terms of the program itself? That I took a bunch of classes that maybe didn't make sense together, but the other thing that I was going to say is that the pro tip in my case was that the class that I liked the least in the program was the one that helped me prepare the background work for my thesis. So I really didn't like it. I didn't like how it was organized, but what did I do? I did a lot of free work and basically prepared my thesis before I started the semester later. So, I mean, it was just, would I have chosen another class? Probably not, because then I wouldn't have done my thesis as well as I did, and wouldn't have known as much as I do about urban planning as I do now, and wouldn't have been cast into